We said on Wednesday we thought this race could be wet and wild, and boy, were we kind of right. At least for sure on Saturday, and parts of Sunday too were very, very wet. But we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. Welcome on in. This is season 7, episode number 13 of the Outlap F1 podcast, and welcome along. We're glad you're here. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, sir, how does life find you on this wonderful, kind of still cool in Chicago Sunday night, but spring is coming. I see little buds on all the trees and stuff, so we're getting there.
It's been a bit of a wild weekend for me, just like Formula One. Had a friend's 30th birthday party and all the fun that came along with that.
Congrats.
Yeah, there's a lot of tequila involved. So, but hey, I was up and at it at like noon and ready for Formula One.
Well, as people on social media found out, I made it back because I've got I decided to declare spring, even though it wasn't really spring yet in Chicago. But I said, God dang it, I'm going to go get a round of golf in no matter what. And I just made it back for the start of the race. But then, I had about 15 minutes to spare. And as I'll also explain to all of the good people out there, I was down one screen because my very beautiful, wonderful television that I usually watch and bought for purposes of watching Formula One for is injured and is out of commission for the weekend. So it's having its innards changed and sucked out and all of that other good stuff. So I was trying to reconfigure and figure out how to watch. And I think I finally figured out what I wanted to do. But by the time I figured it out, it was literally time for the race. So anyway, it's been a interesting weekend for sure. But we're going to talk about this race. We've got lots of sessions to talk about. And like I said, we are glad that you are here. So if you have found our show, welcome along as always. You can find us Blue Sky, X, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of those places. One stop for all of that. If you enjoy what you're watching and you like what you're hearing, if you want to click the like and subscribe button on YouTube, or if you're on your favorite podcasting app and you enjoy the audio, if you want to give us a 5-star review, we would definitely appreciate that. What does that do? Helps us come up a little bit better in search results for people looking for content like this. So you can always email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get you a direct line to us. Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to step up. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Erie Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you want to help out the show in other ways by giving us a little bit of money, we would definitely take it and be very thankful for it. We have a link on all our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1, $5. What does that do? Helps us try to keep our technology as relevant as we can. So, if we go down a screen, we have options and backup plans and all that other good stuff. So, we'd be appreciative if you'd like to do that. You are, of course, under no obligation to do that at all. We're just glad that you're here. All right. So, that takes care of all the particulars. Like I said, we got a lot of sessions to talk about because this was a sprint weekend and there was weather around. So all sorts of fun stuff happened and all sorts of weird stuff happened too, depending on who you were and where you were. But anyway, we'll start with our headlines of the day. Cody, what's your thought here? What you got?
All right. My headline of the day is that I keep telling myself that there is still a lot of season left. A lot of things could change over the next 18 race weekends. All that said, after this weekend, my faith in a Max Verstappen comeback in the championship is starting to wane a little bit. It was a frustrating one for Max fans, and I had that little blip of great feeling when he got pole position when no one was expecting it again. But as we're going to get into, he had a rough one, and that pole position did not turn into a race win like I was hoping.
Well, we will talk about what happened in Max's up and down weekend for sure. My headline is really simple. So that's what the scary McLaren race pace looks like. People have been talking about it. George Russell's been saying they've been on another level, and they haven't showed it until now. And let me just say, gone with the two McLarens out in front. As a fan, I don't think I've ever seen that in my team do that in a long, long, long time. So, yeah, we're going to talk about how they got there. They didn't make their life any easier for themselves. They certainly did everything they could to make it more interesting and more fun, especially in qualifying and even a little bit on lap one. But as we'll discuss, when the race pace is that good, I really don't know what else you could have done. But for everybody who's thinking that, oh, this is now the dawn of the new era or this is how it's going to go, this is one race. They were dominant here, not necessarily going to be dominant everywhere else that they go. Going to a racetrack that's one, very difficult to pass, and the next one in Imola, and two, a racetrack that Max Verstappen really does well at, including being the defending champion at. So for all the Max fans out there, don't think this is over. I'm not thinking it's over by a long shot, and you can tell what colors I'm wearing. So let's put it that way. But we first, before we get into all of that, we have to rewind all the way back to Friday with our sprint qualifying session. You're going to hear this music quite a bit. Hopefully, I've got it all teed up. Hopefully, this thing works the way that I want it to. All right, so here we go with the sprint shootout, and finishing in P20 saw the Haas of Oliver Behrman. P19 was Gabriele Bortoleto. P18 was Yuki Tsunoda. Ouch. P17 was Jack Doohan in the Alpine. P16 was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Advancing through to Q2 but going no farther in P15 was Carlos Sainz. He did not set a lap time in Q2. We'll talk about that. P14 was Liam Lawson. P13 was Pierre Gasly. P12 was Esteban Ocon. P11, really good result here early for them. Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber. That was pretty good. P10, Fernando Alonso dragging the Aston Martin into Q3. It was split Q3, but it was Q3 nonetheless, so good for them there. P9 was Isaac Hadjar. P8 was Alex Albon. P7 was Lewis Hamilton. P6 was Charles Leclerc. P5 was George Russell. P4 was Max Verstappen. P3 was Lando Norris. P2 was Oscar Piastri. And we have a new youngest pole sitter ever. Andrea Kimi Antonelli takes P1 in the sprint shootout, a 126.482, a mega lap from the young Italian there. All right, Cody, big thoughts here in the sprint shootout. I guess it all kind of starts and stops with Kimi Antonelli here. Wow, what a lap.
Yeah, he was really coming into his own this weekend, and he's been having a pretty good start to his Formula One career as it is, but he hasn't really measured up so far to George Russell so far this season, and that's to be expected because George Russell is also very talented, has a lot more experience. He's been in that Mercedes team now for a few years and was in Formula One even a little bit before that. But wow, Kimi Antonelli coming here in the sprint qualifying, showing up Max Verstappen, both McLarens, and his teammate George Russell to put it on top. I definitely didn't see that one coming. Max put it on top, and I thought that there was a chance, and then Kimi Antonelli goes by him, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell? And I'm waiting, I'm thinking, okay, surely like Lando or Oscar, one of them is going to knock him down a peg, and neither one of them was able to do it. So I was kind of losing my mind. I was at the same time disappointed that Max Verstappen wasn't on the front row, but also very happy to see Kimi Antonelli really showing his stuff. As we've said many times, he is highly touted coming into Formula One. He has had a very successful junior career, and the fact that he's put it on pole in any event in Formula One this early on in his career in a car that is clearly not the best car is really something to say. So I think we're going to see plenty more good from him this season.
Yeah, I think the first of potentially many surprises, many fun surprises from the young Italian who is making Toto Wolff look smarter and smarter with every passing weekend, it seems. And you just had to look at the form even in practice. He was the quickest one on the soft tires in the free practice, in the one practice session that they had. There were some the runners that had their laps compromised because there was a late, I think, red flag, so not a lot of people got their laps in at the end of that free practice session. So you couldn't really tell if that was going to be indicative or not. But yeah, all of a sudden when they got to the soft tire, Kimi Antonelli and the Mercedes came alive. Really, I can't really say it any better than that. And all of a sudden, they're all of a sudden, blam, Max comes out and blitzes it, and he sets what you thought was going to be a pretty darn good pace. And then here comes Antonelli, and he goes 3/10, clear of Max. And then I was doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, Lando's got it. No, Lando doesn't have it. Okay, now Oscar's got it. Come on. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. And so just, hey, you tip your cap at that point. What a great individual effort from Antonelli. I was telling you earlier, I kind of dubbed him the Italian Peter Pan. He kind of looks like, just has that kind of aura around him, and he's young enough, he's baby faced enough. He certainly fits the part as far as I'm concerned. So, Kimi Peter Pan Antonelli, congratulations on the sprint pole. And unfortunately, as we move into the sprint race itself, the great one lap form kind of got a bit of a schooling from those with some more experience. And when I say those with more experience, I mean the 21-year-old Oscar Piastri, who apparently has, more gray hairs than anybody on the grid right now, because Oscar got him in turn one in the sprint. So we'll recap the sprint really, really quickly. The sprint, which was totally chaotic because we talked about the potential for rain, and we were thinking that the biggest chance for rain was going to be on Sunday. No. God showed up earlier, one day earlier, unannounced, and decided to deluge the circuit right in front of the sprint, about an hour before the sprint. So the original time of the sprint actually did not happen because they tried to send the drivers out on a formation lap, and I actually agree with this decision. It was just plain too wet. There was no way they were going to be able to run with the amount of spray that those cars were kicking up. I was watching both of my McLaren onboards, and they were near the front of the grid, and I'm going, they can see, and if they can't see, you only have to wonder what's going on in the back. And I'm like, okay, discretion should be the better part of valor. They delayed it for 15 minutes. The amazing part about this Miami circuit, which I did not know, is how well it drains. Because we never even saw that before. But I mean, this thing, they have some. I know it's a parking lot for the football, stadium and all that, but they've got some drainage built in because that moved some water in just 15 minutes to where now when they sent them out a second time, it was a lot better than the spray was much better. They were able to get the race off.
They put out those trucks to dry the tracks too, and I don't think we really see those a whole lot in Formula One. I see them a lot in like NASCAR and stuff like that, where they don't really do as much of like the wet weather racing. But yeah, it was amazing how quickly they got that from all of the cars aquaplaning. We're going to get into it in a second, but Charles Leclerc was extremely unfortunate, didn't even make it to the starting grid because he aquaplaned into the wall and destroyed his car. But yeah, it went from that to raceable in a very small amount of time. So that was at least pretty impressive.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the aforementioned Charles Leclerc did not make the start. That was, I think the recon laps was right at the height of the rain. And he went out on a set of inters to try to go figure out, could we maybe run inters? The answer was clearly no. And the wall said no. And so he hit the wall and was unable to take part in the sprint. The other non-classified finishers in the sprint, so you usually don't see a whole lot of this either. Carlos Sainz in the Williams and Fernando Alonso, who had one of the more spectacular wrecks I think we've ever seen in Miami. But luckily, everybody was okay and everybody was to get out. We will talk about why he's down here. That was P17. That is Max Verstappen. That is due to a 10-second penalty for an unsafe release that happened in the middle of the tire changes, which happened when the circuit, of course, magically then dried out. So P16 was Jack Doohan. P15 was Gabriel Bortoleto. P14 was Ali Behrman. P13 was Liam Lawson. P12 was Esteban Ocon. P11, Alex Albon. P10, Isaac Hadjar. And just missing out on points, Nico Hulkenberg and the Kick Sauber. The points finishers as they finally finished out, because there were lots of penalties that happened after the session, was P8, Pierre Gasly. He gets a point. P7, Kimi Antonelli, although starting on pole, had a very rough sprint. We'll talk about his fall from the top step. He finishes, however, in P7. P6 was Yuki Tsunoda. P5 was Lance Stroll. Look at that. You know, you write him off and, you know, we say bad things about him, and boom, Lance Stroll comes up and scores a bunch of points in the sprint. So, all right, shut up, Drew. There you go. P4, George Russell in the Mercedes. P3, Old Fox still got it a little bit, at least in terms of reading when to go from wet to dry tires. Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. P2 was Oscar Piastri. P1, Mr. Safety Car in Miami strikes again. Lando Norris, the benefactor of it for a second year in a row, but only in the sprint, does take the sprint victory. All right, Cody, if you want to land a Red Bull, here's your shot. Go for it.
I will definitely do that. And I'll start by saying that for how crazy and chaotic this sprint race was, there really wasn't that much racing laps, because they went out, they did their formation lap. They said, nah, I can't do this. After the track dried out, they went out, they did a couple more formation laps, which, you know, count towards the race distance now. And then, as you mentioned, safety car comes out near the end, and they ran under safety car for quite a while. So really, maybe like, what are we thinking, like 10 to 12-ish?
I was going to say 12 or 13 actual racing laps, yeah.
But there was a lot squeezed in there, and some of what was squeezed in there, the thing that really did Max Verstappen in was a bad call by his pit crew. That was really what did him in, because I think he was on track to finish, what was it, third or fourth? And comes into the pits to change tires to the dry tires, and he comes in, he gets his tires changed. The pit crew let him go right into the path of Kimi Antonelli, and that played out really poorly for both of them, because they did some pretty good damage to Max Verstappen's wing. Kimi Antonelli, I think, actually had enough damage that he had to come around and take another pit stop, so he was totally out of, contention for good points anyway. And I think he was actually pretty much out of contention for points, and then there were some penalties and stuff that I think might have helped him out a little bit.
Yeah, but, I mean, the finishing order is so odd, because, let's see, we had penalties for Liam Lawson, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, and Oliver Behrman, as well as Max Verstappen. So, there's a lot. And then because the race finished under the safety car, when you're bunched up, you give anybody any sort of time penalty, it's automatic, like, out of the points. So the actual result, doesn't reflect, I think, anybody's actual form, because, I mean, Kimi Antonelli shouldn't have had any points, and then suddenly had points again. And Yuki Tsunoda shouldn't have had any points and got 3 points out of it. And, Lance Stroll is the benefactor of just keeping his nose clean, and then boom, gets 4 points out of it. So it was for, like you said, for only 12 racing laps, how quickly the place dried out and how quickly the dry line formed. And it was turning into, like, especially from the front, you were thinking, okay, well, they're just going to let everybody else change their tire, and they'll just hang it out on the inters, and they'll be slower, but that should be fine. And then all of a sudden, Lewis comes in, and say whatever the heck you want about Lewis, the guy knows how to read the conditions. He's done that throughout his entire career. He's awesome at it, and he read that thing dead on, spot perfect, because all of a sudden then the slick tires were the tire to be on, and they were 4 or 5 seconds faster, and he's slicing and dicing his way up through the field. And then, just as you thought, okay, the McLarens in front you thought you had enough margin, and then boom, Alonso has his moment, has the safety car, and that allowed Lando Norris, who was in P2, because Oscar Piastri had blitzed the early part of that race and had gotten around Kimi Antonelli and assumed P1 with just a Max Verstappen-esque type move. I guess
Yes.
that's the way that I would put it, would say, the young Padawan is learning and learning quickly because he basically did a Max move on Kimi Antonelli and shoved him right off the track. And that's the standard. We're going to talk about that when we get to Sunday too. That's the standard that we're going with. So, it is his corner. It's all throughout those rules that, we can go through. That's how it's supposed to be done. And Kimmy got schooled a little bit. Welcome to the front row. Welcome to the show. Kimmy Antonelli type moment, and gets shuffled back, and then unfortunately was just not a factor in the sprint because, like you said, then when he's coming in to make his pit stop, he gets run into by Max Verstappen, who Red Bull had released into his path, and talk about lightning reflexes by Kimi Antonelli. To one, he saw it coming and was taking a corrective line to, one, abort the pit stop that he was trying to come in for, and two, otherwise, because if he doesn't, he plows into his entire pit crew. So, I mean, just the amount of safety and quick thinking by both Max and Kimi, because Max saw what was coming and took corrective action, and Kimi saw what was coming and took corrective action. And because both of it wasn't a worse incident that it could have been. Because, I don't know how Red Bull drops that again. That bodes really not good if you're a Red Bull guy, but because
that was
that's
a clear as day unsafe release, and as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, he's totally screwed.
Yeah. Not to mention, now the other thing was, I mean, again, it's where you hit these cars. Sometimes you hit these cars and it's fatal, and other times you hit these cars and they're fine. And apparently Max didn't need a third of his wing because he was still on. Well, we never found out what the pace would have been because the race did finish under safety car, but he did manage to go out and manage to complete it. But it turns out to be a kind of not thing. But yeah, a crazy, chaotic sprint. All you needed apparently was a little dash of water.
I was seeing a statistic. I didn't check to see if this was 100% correct, but I saw a statistic online as I was perusing things about the race afterwards, that apparently this is the first race event that Max Verstappen has finished the race, but finished outside of the points since, I think, 2016 is what they were saying.
Yeah, what is it, like 43? It was like 43 or something like that.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and the other part is, I think Piastri's now third on that list with he's up to 32 that he's been at least in the points. So even, because I know Lando, even though he didn't DNF, was out of the points in Austria last year because after Max and him came together and did that, he was done. And I think that was the only blemish. The reason that Lando's not on that list is kind of the same thing. But yeah, I mean, just the consistency. The counting stats of that Max Verstappen has put up in this era is just, you're going to look back at it, it's just going to be mind-boggling because it's just things you don't see and might not see again for a very long time. So, at least in the sprint, it was, lucky Lando gets the job done and inherits a free pit stop and goes on to take the sprint win. So, he'll take it. And then... So he'll take it, and he gets 1 point back on his teammate, and he gets 8 points up on Max. Yeah, I know. After that, and like I was texting Cody, who I knew was upset about the whole Max thing. I said, you got to remember. Here's the thing: even though it feels like a race, and they package it like a race, it's only 8 points. 8 points at the end of the day. It could be significant. I'm not saying it's not, but it's only 8 points. We have to remember that because we go through the whole hour and a half of post race that we do for a full race, and then we turn around and then we go qualifying again. So it's literally, you take all that, you put it to the side and you reset and you go again. And we see the big qualifying session now fully dry. Now the sun had come back out, and now we were ready to set the grid for the main race, which saw. All right, so for our main qualifying session, going out in P20, Oliver Behrman in the Haas. P19, he scored points in the sprint, but didn't translate after that. was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. P18 was Pierre Gasly. P17 was Fernando Alonso. More pain for both Aston Martins this weekend. Ouch. P16 was Nico Hulkenberg. P15, advancing through to Q2, but going no further, was Liam Lawson. P14 was Jack Doohan. P13, Gabriel Bortoleto. Good qualifying for him in the main qualifying for Kick Sauber. P12, this was a surprise. Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. P11, just missing out on the top 10 shootout, was Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull. The top 10 from 10 to 1. P10 was Yuki Tsunoda, so with 2 Red Bulls in the top 10, I guess that's a good thing. P9 was Esteban Ocon in the Haas. P8 was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. P7, stars of qualifying other than the guy on pole, if you ask me. Alex Albon in the Williams, and P6, Carlos Sainz in the other Williams. Both Williams in Q3 and on form, on merit. P5 was George Russell. P4, this was a bit of a surprise. Oscar Piastri off of the top 3 steps, only in P4. P3, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Mr. Peter Pan, there he is again. Good qualifying form, definitely was the for him. Gets on P3 there. P2 was Lando Norris, and P1, Max Factor, hitting again. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, an amazing lap given the form of where that car was, given the form in the sprint, and all that other things. 126.204. The top 3 separated by 0.67 seconds. Incredibly tight.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Cody, I imagine you let out a yelp after this one, so tell us about it.
I was on the way to the party, watching it on my phone, and yeah, I did let out a pretty good shout when this happened. I had a moment of like a Dumb and Dumber moment of being like, so you're telling me there's a chance? Because yeah, after the poor results in the sprint, not getting any points, I thought, oh my gosh, he has a chance to at least claw some of this back. He got on pole ahead of both McLarens again, which, I mean, he keeps doing that, despite the fact that we are seeing, and we're going to really, really see on race day here, that car is not as good as the McLaren, but he can at least make it look like it's there on qualifying. And on top of that, he's on pole, and Oscar Piastri is down in 4th, so I'm thinking, okay, like, he's going to probably get by Kimi Antonelli during the race, but, who knows if he's going to get by Lando, who knows if they're going to get by Max. Best case scenario, Max goes on to win, and he ends up making up a net positive on Oscar. So I was kind of going through the math in my head and the what if scenarios and being like, okay, like, we could still do something with this weekend. And yeah, that was about as high as my feelings got throughout this race weekend. But for a few minutes there, it was Max on top, and it was great.
Yeah, the defining thing for Max was an outstanding first sector. His first sector times were 3 and sometimes 4 tenths better than both McLarens, where the McLarens were coming back on lap time was in the second half of the lap, at the end of the second sector and at the most of the third sector. And as it turned out, I think when we talked about Kimi Antonelli's pole in the sprint shootout, it turned out to be the differential was literally the last turn where Kimi Antonelli, I guess, went into it a little bit better than Oscar did and got through that corner just that little bit quicker. Here, even though it's incredibly close, this entire qualifying session was incredibly close. Throughout the top 10 is ridiculously close. I mean, you're looking at 7 tenths between P1 and P10, and that's only because it's the differential between Max and Yuki Tsunoda. But everybody else, I mean, was really very, very compressed within, and it's hundreds of seconds, it's thousands of seconds. And the first Q3 lap, I think Max pipped Lando by 0.001. That was when I yelled the nasty thing in my apartment where I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you've got to be blanking kidding me. And then, the Max goes out and then adds 2 tenths to it. And then you just watch it. It got bigger. And I'm like, okay, is Oscar finding form? He did, but not well enough. And then it's like Lando maybe, and then nope, not enough. And then all of a sudden, Kimi Antonelli, stole P3 away from Oscar there late. So yeah, I mean, just a bit of a frustrating session, I think, if you're a McLaren fan. But if you're a Max or even a Mercedes fan or a neutral, the qualifying this season has been top notch and ridiculously close.
I can tell you though, if you're a fan of Ferrari, this was not a good qualifying
That's
session
true.
for you,
That's true.
because we had Lewis Hamilton not even making it to Q3. We had Charles Leclerc near the bottom of Q3, behind both Williams drivers, behind Carlos Sainz and behind Alex Albon, which is really quite surprising. I mean, it really shows you how far that Williams team has come in the last couple of years. That now they're pretty much consistently making it into Q3, and on top of that, they're making it in front of, at least at this track, the team that we consider to be, well in the top four, who was just a hair away from the Constructors' Championship last year. It does appear that whatever they decided they were going to do with that Ferrari car for the season has let them fall a little bit behind. And as we get into race day here, Lewis Hamilton let fly his frustrations, but we'll get into that in a minute. Other surprises here: Oliver Behrman, all the way at the back. He's very hot and cold so far this season. It seems like either he's putting on fantastic performances or he's qualifying eighth back. So this was not the best track for him, which probably means that when they go to Italy in a couple weeks here, that he's probably going to have a great time. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, other than that, it was a crazy qualifying session so far this season. Have all been a blast. These cars have gotten to the point where they are so close in performance, at least on qualifying day. They are so close in performance that it's really coming down to the drivers just extracting that extra tiny bit from the cars, and that's leading to pretty much miracles of qualifying, like Max Verstappen somehow squeezing out a pole when you think it should be in the McLaren, or Kimi Antonelli or Lewis Hamilton really strutting their stuff and putting it on pole. So it's been fantastic so far. I would dare say that so far qualifying has almost been more exciting than some of the races.
To an extent, I would agree with you. Yeah, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, I sit and I watch and I go, okay, just get through to Q3, and then I literally sit and go, okay, question mark time. What's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen here? Are they going to put it together? Are they not going to put it together? Who can put what together? And all the data tells you that if you added up the three best sectors from each of these guys, it should be Lando in P1, Oscar P2, and I think Kimi Antonelli P3, and Max in like P4. But that's not what happened, because in the lap that counted when it was go time, Max extracted that extra little bit out of there. Lando was really, really close, and he came back, but his sector one was so bad compared to the other ones that I kind of gave up on the lap. I literally went and said, "Well, he's out of it," and then of course he goes purple in sector two, and I'm like, "Well, of course you did. Of course you did now."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, I'm watching, and like I still don't think the math is going to work." And then it's the 0.067 or whatever it was away, and it's so frustrating because now again, this has always kind of been the dirty air championship, where if you're in clean air and you can get off the start and you can make it out of turn one, you have a much better percentage of getting your car home in that same position than trying to deal with the dirty air. But yeah, at this point, I don't know that I could have been. I wasn't frustrated, but I was like, this is what I'm telling everybody. I'm like, do not count Max out. This is
Mm-hmm.
what he does. This is just what he does. He's, like I've said before, he's like a virus. He doesn't go away. And he's not going to go away. All right.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
or I was going to say they did show for Lando's last qualifying lap too that he went over one of the curbs really rough, and it was kind of those what could have been. It was like, oh, had he just hit that one just right, probably would have had a pole, and this race could have gone a little differently for him. But
Oh,
just one tiny mistake makes all the difference.
I mean, Piastri in that weirdo chicane section literally went four wheels off the ground. Literally went. He was flying at one point. There's a shot of him because it's the same. It's the same spot where Max hit the cone last year. So it's that same kind of funky corner, and you can see and just he comes down off of one of the curbs, and the car compresses, and then it comes back up. And I think at one point it looks like almost all four wheels are off of the ground. So yeah, just kind of a rougher session for Oscar. Probably the more frustrated I've heard him talk about his own effort in a long time, where he just said this, it was a tricky session, but that's Oscar. That's Oscar telling me, like, Lando comes on the radio and goes, oh my God, I suck. I'm so terrible. I'm never going to drive a Formula One car again. Oscar Piastri's like, yeah, it was a tricky session for me. But anyway, so now we flip over into Sunday. And if you were looking for the F1 Academy race to happen, the second race, that didn't, because the biblical rain showed up on Sunday early afternoon. And I was, again, shocked to hell that from how wet it was during that to by the time we even got to like the formation laps or the recon laps, that place had dried out. That's amazing.
Yeah, I saw a screenshot of, I think it was the F1 Academy drivers trying to do some kind of like formation lap, and it would like the screen was just completely gray with spray from the cars, like no visibility at all. And I was thinking, oh my God, like they're not going to start the race on time because it's so bad. And somehow they did. So yeah, it just goes to show that this track is at the very least good for cleaning itself up pretty quickly
Yeah, if nothing
after
else,
the very spontaneous Miami rain.
yes, it definitely it cleans up quick. Let's put it that way. But we did start on time and we did stay dry, even though there was at one point what they thought was going to be an absolute another biblical rain shower that was coming, and it looked like it literally fell apart about maybe a mile from the circuit because it got dark, it got scary looking. People were saying, I know on the McLaren radio they have all the classes of rain. When they said class 4, I went, oh shit. Because as bad as Melbourne was, that was only class 3. So class 4 is another step above that.
I was praying for it because I was like, come on, let's see a Melbourne repeat. Let's see the McLarens off the road.
Well,
it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, this time, yeah, it just, like I said, the cell, whether it was fortunate or unfortunate, you can decide on your own how you want to view that. But it kind of fell apart, and then we ended up running basically in the dry. But that doesn't mean that there weren't dramas even happening on Sunday. We actually had, at least I thought for the first 18 laps, I thought a pretty darn good show. Non-classified finishers, and we'll have to talk about these folks, was Jack Doohan, who didn't even finish a lap. His race lasted a whole maybe 500 feet, and then that was pretty much the end of the day for him. Other non-classified finishers, Ollie Behrman in the Haas. One of the few times in my recent memory that I can remember a legit engine go bang moment in Formula One. That was engine go bang. That's what it looks like. So he did not finish at all. Gabriele Bortoleto, who qualified so well and was actually doing fairly well in that race, also had some engine gremlin problems, both Ferrari-powered cars, so that's kind of interesting. He also gets the dreaded DNF. And Liam Lawson, who had a lot of damage from that opening salvo with Jack Doohan, ultimately could not make it work after 36 laps, and he called it a day and did not finish as well. Your classified finishers in the back markers were P16 Lance Stroll, P15 Fernando Alonso. As I said before, the pain for Aston Martin seemingly continues. P14 was Nico Hulkenberg, and P13 was Pierre Gasly, who also, or at least gets the distinction of not being lapped. So, yeah, a bit of rough for these folks in the back. All kicking off, especially with lap 1, Jack Doohan and who did he hit? He hit Liam Lawson coming together early. So, Cody, what's your thoughts on that one?
Well, from that one, the fact that Liam Lawson and Jack Doohan can't seem to catch a break so far this season. Both of them fighting for their race seats in Formula One, and both of them seemingly repeatedly coming out with the short stick. Short races for both of them. Jack Doohan actually pretty much had a frustrating weekend throughout. Got off all the way back in sprint qualifying, where he had some frustrations about getting out on track to make his lap, and ended up almost getting screwed by his team for the ability to make the lap time. And yeah, it just kept getting worse. No points, not even really much chance for him. As we said before, this weekend for Oliver Behrman was one to forget. Didn't get great qualifying. His car ended up, giving up the ghost partway through. And yeah, it's kind of almost weird at this point to see engine failures. They don't come up very often, and we had 2 in a race. So, it just goes to show you that still crazy things can happen. Been a while since we've seen someone like retire from the front with an engine problem.
That's true.
But it can happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned 2 guys who were very frustrated, Jack Doohan and Liam Lawson. Jack Doohan, yeah, you're absolutely right. The sprint qualifying was ridiculously animated. I don't think I'd ever seen him that quite upset at his own team, because they sent him out and he couldn't make the turn in order to get his spot to do his second lap. So he never does do a second lap, and then he's out in SQ1, and definitely thought that there was still something in it. And he's fighting and scratching and clawing for every 10th of a second he can get, so he can try to save his seat, because he knows who's standing next over him, and that's he's got Flavio over his shoulder, basically owning every minute of what he does. So, and he's trying to make the best out of it there. But yeah, just a tough go. He was on the inside. He was kind of off the track when he did it. I don't know that either Doohan or Lawson in that turn 1 incident really had anywhere they could have gone differently, given how just everybody fanned out. So it felt like just kind of a lap 1 kind of just unfortunate thing. It's just for the 2 guys who didn't need it, it just kind of bit them both. But anyway, we will move on into the midfield, and P12 saw Esteban Ocon. He made it Q3, but he did not finish in the points, so no points for Haas this weekend. P11 was Isaac Hadjar, who just missed out on a point, literally by like a 10th of a second, as it turned out, because Yuki Tsunoda got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And that it didn't demote him, because he was kind of in a no man's land when he finished, but he finished like 5.103 seconds in front of Hadjar there. So just not enough there. P9 was Carlos Sainz in the Williams, who had a coming together with a very frustrated Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. We will definitely talk about these two. The honeymoon period is over, because Hamilton v. Leclerc, that chapter has now officially kicked off. We've now seen it for the very first time in front of everyone and on all of the radio. Welcome back to the Ferrari decision desk. P7 was Charles Leclerc, who did end up finishing in front of his teammate. P6 was Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Really good qualifying form. Not the world's greatest race pace, but still respectable coming home in P6. P5, Alex Albon in the Williams. Williams form around this track definitely looks real. 2 scorers in the points here. P4, we will talk about how he got here, is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And we'll just give you the podium, because we'll just talk about all of them here. P3 was George Russell in the Mercedes. P2, and now there's the gap. 33 seconds in front of George Russell, you find Lando Norris, and another 4 seconds in front of Lando Norris, you find the winner of the day, Oscar Piastri in the Mercedes, who once he got to clean air was gone. All right, so Cody, where do you want to start? Any of the first 18 laps are yours. Take it from here. Where do you want to go?
I think I'm going to start with the very beginning.
Okay.
After what happened in Saudi Arabia, I was sitting here kind of like leaning up as the race was starting, being like, come on, Max, like, you just got to nail the start and you'll have a chance, because that was where he lost it in Saudi Arabia. So it was a bit of a tight start, but he did exactly what I expected him to do, because we've seen now that it is okay to do this if you are positioned properly. He pretty much shoved Lando Norris. Lando Norris had a sniff going into the first couple turns, but Max Verstappen pretty much just shoved him off the track, because he had just that little extra bit, and Lando is the car trying to make the overtake. So since Max had
on the outside again, Lando on the outside again.
Now to be fair, he didn't really have any other
I know.
way to go through this one. But
it wasn't so much about that one. It was some about the other ones too. But anyway, I
yes,
digress. Keep going.
but he does get shoved off the track, and we've kind of teased Lando in the past about that he doesn't do so hot on a lot of the race starts, and he did kind of get shuffled back here. I think he got shuffled all the way down to sixth place there.
Yeah.
From the shenanigans on the first lap, and then Max opened up a little gap, like a second, about, and he was staying out of DRS range, which by the way, the result of all this is Oscar Piastri magically ends up all the way up in second really quickly because he gets by Kimi Antonelli, obviously gets by Lando Norris, so he's already right there, and I'm kind of being like, oh my god, this is how this is going to go. And after a few laps, that gap went completely away, and we had many laps of really good racing between Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri, where Oscar was right on Max's ass, and Max was doing everything he could do to keep Piastri behind him. Defensive moves, pretty much putting it right on the limit. And it was great for a few laps there, but as soon as Oscar got that close and was staying that close, all I could think of was like, man, it's just a matter of time. I don't think Max can do this forever. And yeah, after a few laps of really awesome battling, Piastri finally does get by Max. In fact, Max was holding up Oscar enough that Lando was almost starting to come back into the picture. He got all the way back up to third and was starting to catch up to the two of them. But then when Piastri finally got by, you really saw how strong the race pace was from the McLaren, because as soon as Oscar got by Max, it only took a couple laps for him to take off down the road and get 8, then 10, and pretty much just kept extending that lead. Max did hold up Lando for just a little while as well, which really, I think the combination of getting shoved off the track on lap 1, combined with the fact that Max held him up a little bit after Oscar got by Max, I think that those two things combined really kind of ruined Lando's chances at a race win, because by the time Lando got by Max, Oscar was so far out in front that Lando was going to have to move mountains to close that gap, or get really lucky with the safety car. The safety car never came. We did get a virtual safety car, which
3 VSCs.
Yes, we got several virtual safety cars, one of which did not favor Max Verstappen, because it looked like Max was maybe on track at least to wrap up the podium. However, he pit for the virtual safety car. George Russell pit during the virtual safety car and managed to get out in front of Max. And at that point, Max was kind of screwed. I think Max was on the hards where George was on the medium, so George had better grip. The gap kind of, opened and closed at a few points, but I don't think Max was ever going to get by George at that point. So yeah, sadly he comes in fourth, but you got to say that the racing between Max and Oscar was really awesome to watch, and I got to say, I think Oscar really deserved this one, because he stayed right up close. He finally got the move done. Everything was pretty clean from both of them, and then Oscar just really showed what that car could do.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it kind of coming for as soon as from at least Lando's perspective, he gets punted back to sixth. I'm actually okay. I know, there's all Lando fans who are all crazy about this, and it's like, calm down. Yeah, he got shoved off, but he was on the outside, and he didn't have anywhere else to go. But these are the standards that they're going with. Whether you like them or whether you hate them, all you want as a fan is consistency. And that's what we got. We got consistency. Max was at the apex the whole time. You can show me the apex of this one, Christian Horner. I'll believe you this time. And that was Max's corner, and Lando couldn't make it work. Now, the second time, there's going to be other ding-dongs where we'll talk about, who was maybe more in the right and more not in the right. And the fact is, I think they kind of self-policed themselves out of it a bunch of times so that the stewards didn't have to get involved, which is also fine and good, and that's probably the right way to go about it. But when Piastri finally gets to P2, and I don't know what happened to Antonelli. All of a sudden they just kick back, and Antonelli is way wide in one of these corners, and he's in the dirty, dusty part. And because the other thing is, you got to remember, because of the deluge earlier in the day, the track is now green. It's basically been reset like back to Friday level of there's no rubber anywhere. So when you were offline, you were kicking up a whole bunch of dirt and everything. And I don't know if Antonelli had a moment or something, but Oscar gets past Antonelli, and then he's on Max, and you could just tell that it felt like just a matter of time. Now Max, being Max, is going to fight like a freaking, I know they called Daniel Ricciardo the honey badger, but that was the exact thing I kept saying. I'm like, he's going to fight him like a freaking wild badger to try to keep that lead, and that's what he was doing. And it took Oscar a couple goes before he kind of figured out, oh, what is Max doing? Oh, he's going straight to the inside all the time. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to let him parade his way right over to the inside. And he went just a bit too far. And Oscar does the up and under and makes it work. And then he's gone. And now it's Max v. Lando part 2. After Lando had gotten punted down to P6, at one point almost P7, he's got to get back around Sainz. He's got to get back around Albon. He's got to get back around Russell. I will say this, though. The McLaren car, even in dirty air, made the Mercedes look pedestrian today, because I think he even made one of the moves around Russell in a non-DRS zone in a part of the track that you don't expect to see an overtake. So I'm like, okay, all right, well, he's coming back. So now he gets he's back into P3, and I felt, okay, at that point, okay, fine. We've got the lap 1 thing. We've kind of recovered from it. What can he do? Now it's Max v. Lando. Again, we've seen this act many times before. What does Max do? He gets his ass to the inside. What am I screaming at my TV at Lando again for? Get your ass to the goddamn inside. And he just wouldn't get there. And the one time he finally did make it stick, I don't know if Lando was all 4 wheels off. I'm glad they just kind of self-policed it. He let Max go by him right after that, but that would have been a really crappy way to finally have made the move stick, and then he probably gets a penalty for it. So let's not keep it in the steward's hands. He let Max get around him, gave the position back. That's probably what you should do. But he had the pace, and it was just going to be kind of a matter of time. And then eventually, I think Max either gave up the ghost or I don't know if he let him by. I don't think he let him by, but I think it was just
hard there at the end.
Yeah, I mean the move that finally happened, right? Like the move that finally happened, it looked like Max just kind of went, oh, I'm not going to fight this anymore because it's just going to ruin both of our races. So have at it. And then by then, Lando was 9 seconds something behind. And then it just turned into a pace race between him and Oscar, and whether Oscar was managing a little bit more because he could, or Lando was pushing because he really was. I mean, Lando was hooked up on race pace and got it to down, I think at one point to within 3.5 seconds, but he was going to run out of time. And that's basically what happened. Without any rain or anything else, it became a 2-horse race. But Oscar just, calm as a cucumber out in front. And once he got that clean air, woohoo, goodbye.
Yes, he is showing that he is calm and collected, cool as ice, and definitely like a real deal. And I wasn't really sure about it early on at the beginning of the season because he was, pretty well outpaced by Lando last year. But he is certainly a strong championship contender and favorite at this point. I would say we still got a lot of championship left. Anything could happen, but he is making his case right now.
And so much so that he even tried to do a little, I don't know what that dance move thing that he was doing. I don't know if somebody tried to dare him to do it. Like, if you win, you have to try this or something. It felt like he lost a bet. And he tries to do like 3 moves of a club dance or something. And then he just, I can't do it. But, that's Oscar for you. But, yeah, I mean, for a weekend that, like I said, I think after the first 19 laps, it wasn't as drama filled after that. There was some other dramas that still happened. We still need to talk about the Ferraris, and the Ferrari decision desk, because Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc are now officially I don't know that they're still on each other's Christmas card list. I think they are, but they were
They
pissed at their
are
pit wall.
definitely rivals now.
Yes. Yes,
Uh,
this is what you get when you hire two number ones, and you know that you get two number ones. And took 6 races, but here we are. So Lewis was in Leclerc's DRS, wanting to get past, asked for 2 or 3 laps to be let past. They do agree to swap the positions because both of them were trying to chase down Kimi Antonelli. So Leclerc gets the first crack. He can't do it. Hamilton gets a crack at it. He is getting the gap down to Antonelli, but meanwhile, Leclerc is now in the heart of the dirty air and is coming up with all sorts of fun reasons why he shouldn't be there and wanted his position back. And then all of a sudden, they tell him to swap back. So now you can only imagine what that does to a guy like Lewis, who throughout his career has not had to deal with that type of thing before. What? Somebody else is going to have preference over me? And Leclerc, the same thing. What? Someone else is getting preference over type of situation going on in both their cars. And it ended up costing both of them because then neither of them chased down Kimi Antonelli. And at the end, Hamilton and Sainz had a coming together on the last lap, or the last corner of the last lap, that led to a post-race investigation. Now, there was no action taken by the stewards in that, but it got rough for the two of them. And despite the fact that even though the qualifying form wasn't there, the race pace was better.
Now, I'm trying to remember who was on what tire. I believe at that point in all that Lewis Hamilton was on the mediums and Charles was on the hards.
That's a good question because the official...
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was that Lewis was on the mediums and he was probably had the better pace at that point. And yeah, they didn't let him. He wasn't getting by Leclerc, even though he probably had the better pace at that point. So he's yelling at the team. And by the way, if you didn't catch all of them, Lewis Hamilton had some zingers over the radio this race. They were fantastic. He's not getting by, and he's asking the team like, "Hey, let me by. I think got the pace to go hunt down Kimi." And they're not having them switch positions. They're just taking their time, and several laps go by. And Lewis comes over the radio and is like, "Guys, you should let me by." And they're like, "Okay, we'll swap positions." And I think what he said was something along the lines of like, "Yeah, why don't you have a tea break while you're at it, like while you're waiting."
There's the tea break, and when they swapped them back, and he's like, "Are you sure?" And then he goes, "Sainz 1.5 behind," and he goes, "You sure you don't want me to swap with him too?"
Yeah, you want me to let him by too? Yeah, it was pretty awesome. His side of the radio, but it is very clear that he was very frustrated. We've gone over this course of 6 races. We've gone from Lewis being patient over the radio, being polite with his race engineer in the first race when it was a little rough, and yeah, now we've already gotten to the point where he's letting everyone know his frustrations with the team and their hesitance to make some strategy calls or some poor strategy calls. Either way, he gets by, but I think his mediums were kind of starting to wear down a bit at that point because he was catching Kimi Antonelli, but he wasn't catching him quickly enough, and the hards were probably coming into the better for Charles by that point. But now it's the reverse situation where, well, yeah, maybe he's got the better pace, but he can't get by Lewis to try to hunt down Antonelli. And so he's, I would say that Charles is a little more passive aggressive over the radio. He's been like, "Oh, I think you guys should swap me back. I'm struggling in the dirty air here. I think I should have another shot at this." And they swap them back. Now, I think you can make the argument that they probably, like, swapping them back was the fair move, because without swapping them in the first place, I'm not sure that Hamilton would have ever gotten by Leclerc. We didn't really get to see it happen. We saw it not happen, though. And I think that swapping them back was probably in the interest of fairness. But Hamilton didn't see it that way. And as you said, Carlos Sainz caught up to him right at the end and tried to make a move up the inside going into the last couple turns. And I think it was a combination of Lewis kind of shutting the door on him and Sainz maybe locking up a little bit, but they did hit each other. Fortunately, it didn't result in enough damage to either one of them. They were both able to finish the race where they were at, but it did get really close there for Hamilton. And I mean, it would have been probably a pretty big blow to Ferrari for one of their cars to get passed by a Williams on merit
Yep.
on the last lap.
Yep.
As it is, Alex Albon up in 5th place on merit. Great day for Williams fans. They are the real deal now. They are in the mix. They're starting to get in the mix with these top cars. I mean, Albon finished in front of both Ferraris and one of the Mercedes.
Yep.
So they are really getting there.
Yeah, and
one of the Red Bulls. Yuki was back there.
Yeah.
So.
Yuki at least got a point. Yeah, 2 Red Bulls in the points. That's a good thing. That's helpful. Now he's up to 4% of Red Bull's points on the year, I think. But yeah, that neither here nor there. But yeah, I mean, for Williams, I mean, yeah, you're right. They're that next team that, like, if someone has a bad weekend, they're the ones picking that up. If they can just manage to keep the car, it seems, on the track. And for a team that wasn't going to do a whole lot of development into the 2025 car, the situation almost demands that they try to do something, because what I would hate to see is that everybody else comes up with a rash of developments in the next, because we're about to start another triple header, and it's the first European triple header. It's going to kick off at Imola. You're probably going to see a whole rash of updates. Then Spain. That's when all the front wing stuff comes in, and you're going to see probably everybody throw whatever else they got at this car before they turn the page to 26. You're probably going to see it there. And what I would hate to have happen is Williams just get outdeveloped because they've already kind of committed to going to 26. Because, yeah, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz are just a lot of fun right now. And I loved what James Vowles said after Albon got the penalty. Like, this is a guy, you want to talk about team principles who you want to root for? James Vowles is one of those guys, because he goes, yeah, I feel like we cost Alex Albon 5 points in the sprint, and those points are going to haunt me in my dreams for the next year or so. And I'm like, dude, okay.
He's got
that's what I do in my dreams, but you don't do that, dude.
I really like James Vowles. He's a very smart individual. He's also got a very dry sense of humor, and he's another one of those guys that's really quiet, but a really good leader. And we've seen a huge turnaround in the Williams team since he's been there. So obviously, whatever he's doing to get the team to rally is working.
Yeah.
I agree with you that it would be a shame to see them get outdeveloped, after having so much success so far. But I mean, who's going to outdevelop them? The teams that are going to do all the big development are pretty clear out in front of Williams.
Yeah.
Like, they are starting to mix now with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, but like, Ferrari's the next team in front of them in the team standings, and it's a pretty big gap. I mean, who's going to try to outdevelop them this year? Haas, Aston Martin?
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's not going to be Aston Martin, because they've said the same thing, and maybe Haas if they come up with something. But
I think we're going to see Williams kind of end up in like an island as the season progresses. The other teams in front of them are going to develop and pull further ahead, but the teams behind them are not going to develop. So Williams is going to pull ahead of them, and they're just going to end up in this island of nothingness.
Well, I guess that would be the shame. I like the fact that they're at least able to be mixing it up with, the likes of a Mercedes and the likes of a Ferrari right now, because I think that's the system, that's the cost cap, that's all that stuff working. When Ferrari and Mercedes do the thing where they, just because they have more, outspend them because Williams doesn't want to develop for this year. That's the unfortunate part. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm cooking all this up in my head, and maybe none of it happens, and Williams can hold it. I think that would be great for both of those guys, especially a guy like Sainz. But but I was overall, like I said before, very impressed with their effort for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will leave I think that's all the rest of the sessions, unless they threw another green flag and I didn't realize it. I think that's it. So, all right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come on back. We'll reconnoiter where all the points are after all of the sessions this weekend. We'll talk about where the drivers are, talk about where the teams are, and then we're gonna open it up to the fan email segment. You guys, especially you guys overseas in the UK. I know you had a late night, but thanks for chipping in when you guys did. That was all great. So we've got some really good stuff in here. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk about predictions. Cody and I managed to do something on the podium that we didn't think was possible. But we'll talk about what happens in the predictions when we get there. But anyway, come on back. You won't want to miss it. So just a minute, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back on in. This is season 7. This is the not unlucky 13 episode, for real this time, episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Miami GP review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up talking about a sprint weekend that saw all sorts of stuff. It saw rain, it saw some good racing, it saw some drama, some ups, some downs, and all over the place. It seemed like this weekend was. But anyway, now we're going to take a look at where all the points shake out after all of that. Cody, if you take the drivers, I will handle the teams.
All right. Your drivers' championship leader is still Oscar Piastri. He's extended his lead with another win this weekend. He is in first with McLaren Mercedes at 131 points. Second place, his teammate. So great time to be a McLaren fan. Lando Norris in second place at 115 points. So not a huge gap between the two of them, but Oscar has opened it up just that little bit more. And then it's another 16-point gap down to Max Verstappen in third for Red Bull. He's hanging on as best he can, and I'm still behind him. I still think he could do it, but he's going to have to fight harder probably than he's ever had to fight before. Right on his tail now, George Russell is quietly sitting in the mix here. You know, he's been on the podium so often already this season, and a lot of the time it's pretty quiet performances, but he's doing very well. George Russell in fourth place for Mercedes at 93 points, so only 6 behind Max. And then it's a little bit of a gap down to the first of the two Ferrari drivers. That's Charles Leclerc in fifth place with 53 points. Just behind him now, Kimi Antonelli in sixth place in the other Mercedes, 48 points, only 5 behind Charles at this point. And then seventh place, Lewis Hamilton in the second Ferrari on 41 points. And then we have Alex Albon Williams in eighth place, which is fantastic for him. He's in eighth with 30 points. And then a bit of a gap down. It's actually a tie in points now for ninth and 10th place. Esteban Ocon for the Haas and Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin both have 14 points each, but Esteban Ocon gets the tiebreaker on a higher position, finished for the season. So that's Esteban Ocon in ninth and Lance Stroll in 10th.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And as for the team standings, McLaren and Mercedes have now opened up a bigger gap. They are the first team in the sprint format era to sweep all the points. They got 1-2 in the sprint and 1-2 in the main race. They are the first team to do that. So they get a whopping 58 points on the weekend, and that puts them up to 246. Second place is Mercedes, who did not have a bad weekend from a constructor standpoint at all. 30 points is usually pretty damn good, but they are only up to 141 when you look at the gap to the McLarens there. P3, Red Bull Racing Honda, checking in now with 2 contributors to their scoring this weekend. They check in with 105 points. P4 is Ferrari. They are up to 94 points. P5, there's the gap at least from P4 to P5. Williams Mercedes checking in. They're up to 37 points. They have now a pretty comfortable gap on P6 in the Haas, who remain on the 20 points. P7, once again, on the strength of Lance Stroll. 100% to 0 right now. Lance Stroll, 14 points. Aston Martin, 14 points. So they check in there. P8 is Racing Bulls. whose livery looked a lot better other than the car's performance. I felt kind of bad for Hadjar just missing out on the point there by a tenth, but they check in and they remain only on 8 points. P9 is Alpine. They remain on 7 points. And P10 is Kick Sauber. They remain as they have been since the first round of the season on 6 points. All right, so you have heard our takes on what we saw this weekend. Now it's time for our favorite segment of the show, fan email segment, where we open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend. We've got our regulars here. I apologize. I was not as active on social media like I would mention to Cody, and maybe I mentioned it before. I'm a screen down. So trying to do the normal stuff when I've reconfigured everything has been kind of hard. So I kept a little more on Twitter, not as much on Blue Sky. I promise moving forward I will be better, and I will have my stuff back. Hopefully by the next race, should be back and re-optimized for that. And I will definitely try to give Blue Sky a little bit more love as well. All right, so we've got our regulars here. Cody, it's your time to shine, sir. What do we got?
All right, our first fan email comes in from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. And he says, "Hi, team. What a weekend in Miami it has been. The sprint format really surprised me with a Mercedes pole, and then the sprint was incredibly insane. It feels like Mercedes was the support act for McLaren. The race itself was all right. McLaren looked like mean machinery. Oscar is just insane. Challenging Max again. I would say going beyond challenging Max. He's thwarting Max right now. What were your thoughts on the Lawson and Doohan hit? Who was at fault, in our opinion? And that pink livery on the Racing Bulls is gorgeous. I definitely thought that the Racing Bulls had the best special livery of the weekend. And we did talk about that on the preview. So if you haven't listened to it yet, check it out, because we really bashed the Ferrari livery. But the pink Racing Bulls with the silver bowl on the back did look really nice. As far as the Lawson Doohan incident, I'm going to take the steward's usual way out and say that it was a first lap racing incident. They're all really tightly packed together. I don't think it kind of looked like, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember that far back, but I believe it was that Lawson got hit by Doohan on the inside, but Lawson also didn't leave a whole lot of room for Doohan on the inside. So it was kind of just one of those that they're both not really in the wrong, because it's crazy at the start of the race, and you get a little bit of benefit of the doubt there. Yes, McLaren does look like mean machinery, and we really saw it shine here. Now, to be fair, like Andy was saying, this is a track that really supported the McLarens, and we kind of went into this weekend thinking that they were going to look dominant, kind of like they did in Bahrain. But yes, they pulled out a massive gap, and I really hope that it's not that I'm not happy to see the McLarens winning. You know, I'm obviously a Max Verstappen fan, and I want to see him win his 5th championship in a row. But if someone else has to win the championship at this point, be really happy to see Oscar Orlando do it, and really happy to see, McLaren come back from many a really poor season to come back and win the drivers' championship again. So I'm happy to see it. I just wish it was a little closer. Every race we have had some where it's been very close, but I really hope it continues to be close, and we don't get to a point where we see this happening every race weekend, because we've seen that happen before, and it gets boring really quick.
No, I'd agree. I mean, if I take my fan hat off for a second, and I look at it from a neutral's perspective, I don't think anybody wants to see 35 seconds to P3. I would agree 100% wholeheartedly with that. I do think this was, as you said, a case of what are the strengths of the McLaren car? Medium and slow speed corners, not really big in the straights, and tire degradation. And this was the place. This was really the first one where I said, if it's hot and it's muggy and it's melting the tires, this is where they're going to eat. And that's kind of what you saw. But you didn't see it over one lap. Everybody kind of stayed with them over the course of one lap, but it was just kind of, you could see it even if you actually looked at the timing from the first practice and what what long running anybody was able to do, even though you only had the one session. You could see it even then. I'm just watching the times on the long, medium stints that they were running, and I'm like, okay, you just got to be up there. You don't necessarily have to be on the pole. Pole would have been great, but I'm just like, okay, you just had to be up there. What I didn't anticipate was just how much more, because even at other tracks when they would get into dirty air, you saw in China when Lando got punted down to P9, that was kind of it. If he couldn't go anywhere, and that was surprising to me, was that he couldn't do it then. Here, it was the exact opposite. He gets punted down to P6, and then all of a sudden it was like, again, he made the Mercedes kind of look pedestrian the way that he got around both of them. And so did Oscar on the move on Antonelli. Like I said, I don't know if Antonelli had a problem or what happened, but all of a sudden he was just poof past him. So, yeah, I mean, they're dominant here. We've seen tracks where they've been dominant. We've seen other tracks where they're not going to be quite as dominant. Now, they're going to where we're going to Imola, which is a qualifying dependent track. So, and clean air is going to be king. I'm not as confident. I think they'll be good, but I don't think they're going to be great. So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be opportunities for Red Bull, for Mercedes, for other teams to step up and give it to them a little bit. So I don't think this is not championship over. Don't write it. Don't punch the books 6 races in. It was a great weekend for them as a team. I'm incredibly proud considering 2 years ago in 2023, we're looking at 2 years, they're getting lapped and not even close. So from there to here, amazing stuff. I'm ridiculously proud. But from a neutral perspective, yeah, I get it. We don't want to see 33 seconds, and I don't think we're going to.
Yes, indeed. And the last little bit here that we did talk about is, yes, it was really surprising to see a Mercedes on the pole, especially Kimi Antonelli. I think we're going to see
Kimi Antonelli, who, like I said, I've dubbed him the Italian Peter Pan. He's got that look on his face. I don't care. I'm just talented, and you saw exactly that's what raw talent looks like. He flashed in the qualifying. He got a little bit of schooling in the race. Remember when Oscar Piastri was the first time he got on sprint pole? He got schooled by more experienced people. Russell got him, and then Piastri got him back later, and other stuff. And there was the one in Spa where Max Verstappen took Oscar Piastri to school on how to do a restart and how not to do it. So that's kind of how you go. Now he took his lumps. Kimi Antonelli is going to be stronger for this weekend, no doubt.
Oh yeah, he's going to get there for sure. If we don't see a race win out of him this year, I think we're going to certainly see something out of him next year, because it seems to be going in the direction that Mercedes is going to have the strongest power unit. Probably, we don't know for sure, but I think he's going to be in a good place either this year or next year to get that first race win in. He's just got to get a little bit more experience. I mean, like you were saying, when Oscar Piastri first started in the sport, he had flashes of brilliance. He had plenty of times where we saw the growing pains, getting into tussles or having trouble with tire degradation and stuff like that. And now he's looking quite dominant and just won his 3rd race in a row. So I'm sure Antonelli will get there. Thank you again, Dave, for your email. Our next one comes in from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, well, that was a race. So 12 months ago, this was the race that kickstarted McLaren's season for real. This time, they dominated the race after getting past Max. I'm not happy about the start, though, because I thought Max didn't give enough room. But what's done is done. They are the class of the field. Welcome to Ferrari, Lewis. I thought his team radio was hilarious. I did too, to be honest, especially the comments about having a tea break. This did remind me of a comment Martin Brundle made in the 1999 European Grand Prix. Wow, you get a good memory. When Ferrari messed up a pit stop for Eddie Irvine when they couldn't decide on a tire for him. And the quote is, now they are having a committee meeting about it. Stick it on and send him out. And I actually, strangely enough, think I'm familiar with that quote, because he was sounded kind of frustrated when he gave that quote. Ferrari's woes go much deeper than recent years, it seems. Brilliant from Alex Albon this race. He has taken the season by the scruff of the neck and is racking up the point finishes. Sauber watch, Bortoletto's car failed, and Hulk was in 10th at one point, but got nothing out of it. Alonso watch, he spun, but finished ahead of Stroll. Remember when Alonso was getting all those podiums 2 years ago? It must feel like a lifetime ago because Aston Martin has become Jaguar again. Ooh, that's pretty brutal blow there.
Ouch.
At least Lawson got punished for what he did in the sprint. So a lot to go off of here. I'm going to go probably from the top here. Yes, it is kind of cool to see how much of a difference a season can make. Last year, Lando got his first win here. There was some luck involved, but it was definitely the turning point in McLaren's season. And now, just 1 year later, they dominated this race. It's cool to see how much of a difference that makes. Unfortunately for Lando, it was not Lando doing the brunt of the dominating, but he himself had a dominant race. I mean, he was still, 20-something, 29 seconds out in front of, or 30-something seconds out in front of George Russell. So having a great race himself. He just got that little bit outdone by Oscar Piastri, who, made it happen. We did talk about the Ferrari stuff with Lewis Hamilton's radio and how hilarious that is, and I love the callback to other funny quotes pointing at Ferrari. It appears that the Ferrari strategy blunders does go back even to some of their most dominant times in the sport. I think that it's just really nothing has changed. I mean, Ferrari's been doing this for many seasons now, but we saw plenty of blunders like this in 2022 with Charles Leclerc when he had one of the fastest cars. We saw it continue into 2023. Last year was great for them. They almost won the championship. Just didn't quite get there. But it's definitely not looking good for them right now. I think it's hurt by the fact that they don't have a great car.
That's fair.
Everything else you got in here is great. I'm going to say that I would agree that Max didn't give a lot of room, but as we've seen, the current iteration of the driver's rules on overtakes and stuff apparently allows for this to happen. We've seen it happen several times. And so, going back a little bit here, Max is a master of pushing the rules to their limits and occasionally beyond, but arguing his case. We saw him do that a ton last year, making, somewhat unfair moves, but getting away with it because it was to the letter of the law in the rules, and that's what he was trying to do. And now we're seeing that now. We saw, Max kind of maybe got pushed off the track by Piastri in Saudi Arabia, but per what the rules are right now, Piastri was entitled to that turn, and it's up to Max to avoid the collision in that case. And we saw that happen again during the sprint race here, where Oscar Piastri again pushes Kimi Antonelli off the track, but to the letter of the law for the rules, he's entitled to do that based on where they were on the track going into the turn. And so, Max is going to take every advantage that he can. If the rules say you're here at this part of the turn, you're entitled to the line, and he, the other driver has to avoid the collision, that pretty much means, hey, I can shove him off the track here. And that's exactly what he did. Every driver is going to complain too when that happens to them. Like Max complained when it happened to him in Saudi Arabia, and then he turned around and he did it here. And then Lando complained about it happening to him, and knowing how things go, he's going to get pole and he's going to shove somebody off in Imola. So that's just how it goes. They are all going to take those opportunities when given to them.
Yeah, and the thing was they Lando protested on the radio, but I've heard lots of Lando's protests, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give that about a 6. I don't think he was that into trying to get Max a penalty at that point. And apparently, it came out in the post race that one of the things that they talked about with both McLaren drivers was they knew they were good here. Let's put it that way. They were telling both Oscar and Lando that said, hey, if it's not there in lap one, you might not have to go for it because we should just kind of sit on our race pace and let it happen. And Lando still went for it. And in any other race, probably at any other track, I'd probably be here going, Lando did another Lando. God damn it. Why did you do it again? I pulled up the timing exactly at the wrong minute because I pulled it back up after the start of the race and I saw and Lando's in sixth and the broadcast hadn't caught up to it and I'm like, oh, God damn it, he did it again. It's literally what I yelled out. And, but to his credit, he then went to work and did what his team told him to do, which was, just use your race pace and make it work. So, again, with respect to the combat rules, at least we have something that at least now we can look at and we can understand. Because I think part of the reason that we always had this maddening level of inconsistency is we didn't know who was where and what was right. Because you would look at it in one corner, you would say, well, that guy should have the corner. And then you look at the same thing 2 weeks later, and then they rule it in the other way. Mm-hmm. So that's the part that was just like, yeah, it would drive you nuts. Like you'd see the same move in one place and it's called one way. You see the same move in another place, it's called a different way. It's no wonder nobody knows which direction to try to overtake anybody. But at least now they're being consistent with it. As long as they stick to it, I don't love it. I don't love the fact that you don't give any credence to the guy on the outside because I do think there are opportunities and places where you can make moves on the outside. But if you're just going to say that that's the guy on the inside has the preferential treatment, that's fine. But just stick to it so that we all know what we're doing when we go into a corner. As long as that's the case, I'll deal with it.
I think it's not even just always that the person on the inside has the line. I think they did kind of clarify
the standard is you got to be so much farther in front on the outside to make it work.
Yeah, you have to be in a position where you have a clear chance of making the overtake. But and this is how it goes. They try to make the rules fair, and it's never going to be 100% fair because the drivers don't 100% play by the rules. So it's always going to be a little tricky.
Rachel, I know you're a big soccer fan, so I'll just say it's like offsides in soccer. How many times can you look at the artificial line for offsides in soccer, and then they do the 3D virtual image of was the guy offside, was he not offside? It's minute, little tiny things that make it maddening, and that's just kind of sports being sports. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't. But and the other thing I was thinking of, like, had Lando finished in sixth, would I be much more pissed off? Maybe. I'll be honest. As it turned out, it kind of at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. Or if Lando couldn't get back around Max later on in the race, would I be more upset about it? And the answer is again maybe. The one that I apparently it was Lando's decision, not the team's decision, to give the position back after he does do the one overtake, and then they let Max come back. It was marginal on whether or not he was 4 wheels off. He was close, but I think he had Cody flashbacks from last year and just said, you know what, I'm just going to not deal with this and let Max go back by. And then, he does eventually get around him. So, yeah, I mean, so that's my bit on the whole Max Lando thing. Ferrari decision desk, welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen that. I think the thing that Lewis was most upset about in that whole thing was why the wait. Why can you not see a situation and know one guy is faster and look at the data and why did it take 2 laps?
I am on the softer tires. We're trying to catch the car in front of us.
Right.
Why don't you just, like, when he catches up to him, be like, all right, it's time to swap. Like, why do you have to go several laps? I mean, it's not like it was for the win. Like, I understand if it was for the win or even for a podium, let him race it out. But, like, this wasn't for that. You're trying to maximize the points on a weekend that you're really not doing so hot at. Like, at that point, it's like you have to turn into like a machine almost and just be like, put the driver's feelings aside and be like, what's going to get us the most points?
Yep.
Hamilton has the better chance to go get Antonelli, so let him by right now instead of letting him sit in the dirty air for laps, wearing out those tires, so that when you finally do let him by, he's got nothing left to go get him.
Yeah,
it's definitely frustrating.
I say this in my job all the time. I'm in my real job. I'm in a position sometimes where I have to make decisions on who do I service first. I've got 4 people. They're all yelling at me equally about something that they think is very important to them. And what I have to do is I turn into a difference engine. What is going to make the most amount of impact in the least amount of time to help the most amount of people? That's how I have to prioritize it, because otherwise I'm just a whim for the emotions. That's what Ferrari should have done. They should have looked at the data. They should have said, this is the best thing for our team right now in this situation. 5 laps later, when it changes, then they can change their mind, but that's fine. But don't give Lewis Hamilton the whole plains message for 3 laps like that. I think that's the thing that pissed him off more than anything. And then the sarcasm just came out.
Mm-hmm. Last little bit I want to touch on here from your email, Rachel, is remember when Alonso was getting all those podiums a couple years ago? Yes. In fact, I would say the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix is probably the only time that I've ever been disappointed with Max winning a race. And 2 years on, that disappointment is just even more so, because story, I'm a sucker for a good story. And the story of Fernando Alonso, after so many years of not winning a race, to finally come back and win the Monaco Grand Prix, giving Aston Martin their first win at Aston Martin, it would have been awesome. It would have been fantastic. And knowing how much now that their performance was going to fade off after that, even just during that season, and then in the years that followed, to the point where he has no chance of getting a podium, much less a race win now, it just makes that sting a little bit more, because it was close.
And a Sector 3 that I will still say is one of the more... You can put all the Max Verstappen moments in a capsule. That, to me, is still number 1. That far down, with that little real estate left to go, to come back, to do what he did in a place that you don't find that kind of time in Sector 3 in Monaco. It does not happen. There's lots of drivers that have tried it. Nobody else has done it like that. That, to me, that was the one time I've ever pounded my desk and said, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," when I saw that timing change. I literally said that out loud. I'm like, you were 4/10 down with 1 sector to go. How'd you do that?
It was fantastic. It was a great moment in Formula One history, and I wish it didn't happen. And it was Max.
There you go.
So,
there you
have it. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, a 33-second gap from the McLarens to third place is, I'm guessing that's oof, not off, oof. I mean, I love the papaya, but even a teeny tiny fight wouldn't be such a bad thing. It's quite a testament to how well that team is currently functioning, though. Super happy about that. How long does Alpine keep the same driver lineup? Might find out really soon. One of them isn't doing so good. It's actually pretty great. And lastly here, also, what do Michael Strahan's teeth and the Red Bull driver lineup have in common? I'll leave you to find the answer. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. That one's sailing clear over my head. I don't know who Michael Strahan is.
All right, I'll help you here, because I figured it. I think I figured this one out. There's a gap. There's a big gap right in the middle there between what Max is doing with the car and what Yuki's doing with the car. And if you look at Michael Strahan's teeth, you could drive a truck through that gap in his mouth, man.
I gotcha. All right, so Mr. Formula coming out with some zingers.
I was going to say, I read that. I was like, I think pretty sure that's what he's going for. I hope I nailed it. I hope I'm on the same wavelength with you, buddy.
I'm thinking you are probably in the right on that one. Yes, so we've got a couple of big gaps here. We've got a big gap, at least in this race, between McLaren and everyone, and then continuing to have a big gap between Max and his teammates. I'm continuing to believe here that Yuki Tsunoda is going to be in that car for the rest of the season, because at the very least, he is usually keeping it on track to the end of the race, and he is getting some points, even though it's not a lot. We've talked about how hard that car is to drive. Max Verstappen says it's hard to drive, but he's only just been in that car for a little while. I gotta hope and think that he's gonna get better, and he's proving that he did deserve a shot at that seat, because I don't know if Liam Lawson has just had all his confidence go out the window, but even being back in the junior team now, he is not succeeding, and Yuki Tsunoda is at least doing better than Liam Lawson was doing in the Red Bull. Let's be there. I don't know if at this point I would say that Yuki Tsunoda is doing better than Sergio Perez would have been doing. And that's saying a lot, because we ripped Perez last season plenty of times, and now it's kind of to the point where it's like, oh, maybe he actually was doing the best that he could.
I feel like we should just kind of do a big Sergio, we're sorry.
We're sorry. Yes. We should have had more faith, and you know what? You might get a chance here to come show your stuff. So
certainly sounds like the Cadillac who revealed their logo. That was the big reveal, not the livery, not the drivers. No, we have a big party to reveal a logo. Well, if that isn't Formula One, guess what? Cadillac, they're on brand. Let's just put it that way. They've understood what the game is.
Yeah, that was pretty lame. I was all excited for something and got pretty much nothing. But the part about 33-second gap, we were pretty much just talking about that. That it would be nice to have the teeny tiny fight. But to your credit, what you're saying, Andy, is that it's a big gap here. We had a big gap in Bahrain, but it hasn't been like that everywhere they've gone. Yeah. It's been closer fights, and it's actually pretty crazy to think here that McLaren has won 5 out of the 6 races so far, but they have been close more often than not.
Yeah, so, I mean, the tough thing is if they're not this, people always keeps going back and points to the testing and goes, "Why aren't you that?" And then when they are this, now now that was kind of boring. Well, what do you want? I mean, look, there's certain traits that suit that car, and there's certain traits that don't suit that car. And I thought in the first part of the schedule, they had to. We said in our preview, they had to make the hay before they got to Spain, and they've got a nice gap in the constructors. So even if the wing thing is a kryptonite, which I don't think it's going to be, by the way. I don't think this is going to be nearly all it's cracked up to be. No. They had to get it done then. Well, they went 5 out of 6. And the one that they lost, look, that was Max in a place where he is just really good. He's outstanding in Japan. It's almost like a second home race for the guy. And that's one of his arenas, and he was just awesome in Japan. You just got to tip your cap, and that's all you can really do. The other thing that they've had a lot that they didn't anticipate was, one, the weather for the most part had been cooler than you would have anticipated, especially in places like China. And 2, there's been a lot of resurfacing, which brings, I think, a lot of these these teams who don't have the tire deg problem back into play a lot more. So you see Mercedes and you see Red Bull sticking around a lot more. Where we're going now we're going into the old school tracks that don't have a whole lot of that. So, and it's going to get warmer out. It's going to consistently be warm. So now we're going to find out, okay, now we know kind of what the strengths of the McLaren car is, but we also know that it's kind of, if you get to the front early, Imola, I think, is going to be a dogfight. Because it's going to come down to qualifying generally, because if Max does another one of these things that he does here, I don't even know, even if the race pace is awesome like it was today, I don't know where you're going to overtake. You got one spot to overtake, and it's pretty easy to defend, and Max knows how to defend.
Yeah, so we've got the next 2 races really going to be like that, because we've got up next, we've got Imola, and we got Monaco,
Right.
right? So yeah, two tracks known for being very difficult to
Yeah.
overtake at. We
If
pretty much
not
saw that
impossible.
happen last year, where Lando clearly had the pace on Max. He just couldn't get it done at the end because it's really hard to pass there. So that gives me a little bit of faith that if Max can somehow continue to put it on pole, that at least he might get a little more something out of it over the next couple of races. But yeah, here the race pace of the McLaren was just so strong that, like, Max put up the good fight, but I don't think he could have done that for the entire race. Like, eventually, uh, Oscar was going to get the better of him,
Yeah,
and he did.
and even when Lando got there, and even when he was struggling to get by, I'm like, okay, worst case is you take him in the pit stop sequence. You
Hmm.
wait, you do the thing where you sit back and you wait. Now he didn't have time because Oscar was just on another zip code by the time he finally
Yeah.
did. But if it wasn't this kind of dominant pace, you could have sat back, wait for the tire offset, and try to get Max at the end of the stint, or try to do a undercut or something like that to try to take him that way too. But the fact that they were just sticking that much, and the fact that even Max, who was trying to do Max things, couldn't open up a gap, that just kind of tells you everything that you probably need to know there. But I don't anticipate 30 seconds in all places. Like maybe here, maybe against Singapore, because they were just so really good there too. Um, and it just kind of has the type of curves, the medium and low speed curves that just fit that car really good. And unfortunately, I do think the Netherlands, again, I think Zandvoort is another McLaren playground track, at least according to the characteristics of the car. Now, that's not going to make the crowd happy, but we're going to see what happens.
The only thing that I can really think of that would be making, so obviously all the cars here are running really close to each other on like one lap pace and stuff like that. The only thing that I can think of that would actually hurt McLaren out of this whole like new wing test thing is if they are getting that much of an advantage out of flexi wings, they're probably running the car with more downforce, uh, which is making them better in those low speed corners. And they can get away with doing that because if the wing is flexing so that they get less drag in the higher speed areas, then that would have to mean that if they crack down on that and they can't use as flexible wings, then they're going to have to run less downforce, which is going to make the car harder to drive, or they're going to run the same amount of downforce and they're going to be more draggy. And with how close all these cars are right now, something as small as that type of setup change could make all the difference.
Yeah.
We got a couple races before we see. I mean, Spain is going to be the first race where we're actually going to have those more stringent tests in place. And it's entirely possible too that McLaren has been researching this whole time a way to continue to do what they're doing and still get past the test. So, we can wonder about how it could be, all night here. But I think we're just going to have to wait and see how much of a
Yeah.
difference it makes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're going to see tracks that are going to be much more favorable to some of these other teams. I don't think. I think again, you see a track like Spa that's been McLaren kryptonite for years, for just
Yeah.
years. Mercedes did really well there. I'm sure they will do really well here too. So again, I'm not saying championship over. It's great as a McLaren fan. I love the result. I told you I wanted 3 of these. I got 1. Just 2
Mm-hmm.
more, and then I'm good. All
And then the
right.
last little
Oh
bit
yeah, go
before
on.
we move on here,
Yep.
how long does Alpine keep the same driver lineup? Well, it could be less than 2 weeks. So we
There
will.
is reporting out there, even hitting the press tonight, that potentially Franco Calapinto could be swapped out as early as Imola, and that is coming from a reputable source. That is not from a fringy source. So we will see what happens there. Stand by for any driver announcements. If it happens, we'll obviously do our best to bring them to you as we find out about them as well. All right. Well, thank you so much to our regulars here for contributing. Great stuff. Like I said, I knew it was kind of a late night in the UK, so appreciate all of the feedback as always. And if you'd like to join the discussion, feel free to. We answer all comers. We love our regulars. We'd like to have new questions hit us too. Makes us. It's one of the reasons we're doing this is to talk to people about. the sport we love. All right, so we will now turn to our awards. We will start with the rubbish. Cody, I like what you got in here. I think I know where you're going here. What you got?
Yeah, my rubbish award is going to go to the Red Bull pit crew because they, clear as day, cost Max Verstappen 5 or 6 points in the sprint this time out. That was one of the clearest, unsafe pit release penalties I've ever seen. They let him out right into the path of Kimi Antonelli. It screwed over both of their sprints. Ended up getting damage to Max's car, to Kimi's car, and it was only due, like you were saying earlier, to their quick reaction from both drivers that it wasn't worse and that no one got hurt in the pit lane. And then you combine that with the timing of the safety car that ended up going to the end of the race, and that knocked Max completely out of the points. Sprints aren't worth a lot of points, but there was 6 points, 5 or 6 points on the table for Max there, and the team pretty much threw it away with a mistake. And I just really hope we don't get closer to the end of the season and look at this and say, wow, those 6 points would have been really useful right now.
Yeah, you're also reminding me I have a victory lap to do on our next preview, so I'm just going to put that out there right now because they're considering doing something. I don't know if people who listens to this thing after it goes out, but the FIA are considering doing something that I've been pleading with them to do since I started on this show, and it's actually going to happen. I think it's actually going to happen. And let's just say, if it does happen, Victory Lap Supreme coming. So stand by for that one. But yeah, no, totally get what you're saying about the Red Bull thing. Yeah, that's just. I think I texted you. I said that's not on Max at all. What can he do? I mean, he sees the light. He's told to go when the light happens. And if the light doesn't work, you got to look at why the light's not working. Like, somebody needs to drill and figure out what's going on there quickly, because with the margins what they are, you can't afford that. And I mean, that was crazy that it didn't end up being a lot worse than it really was. So I'm glad we're not talking about that. Yeah, it sucks for both of the participants in it. For Max, it sucks for Kimi, who thought he'd thrown away his sprint, and then all the other penalties kicked in and brought him back up. But still, just a not good situation all the way around. So I'm going to give my rubbish out this weekend to basically most of the rookies, because I think a lot of the rookies looked like, well, rookies this weekend, both in qualifying and on some race pace. Other than Antonelli and Hadjar, Antonelli is the obvious exception to that. He did not look or race like a rookie at all this weekend. I thought he had this was his coming out party in a lot of ways. But yeah, this track seemed to bite a lot of the inexperienced drivers a bit. So yeah, that's how you learn, I guess. You learn by doing. So I hope they will all come back stronger for it, but at least for this weekend, they go into the rubbish bin for me. All right, so we'll turn to our analysis paralysis. I'll go first on this one. It's the return of the Ferrari decision desk. The literal hold please when when Lewis calls for the swap is just, you can't do that. You gotta know. You gotta be in the moment. You're smart people. You can read data. That should have been an easy call. Just flip them. You tell Charles, hey, if he doesn't get him, we'll flip him back. Which is what you ended up doing anyway. And then your tire situation was such that it was the right thing to flip him back. So anyway, that's what you should have done. And I thought you both kind of lost out because of it. Cody, what you got here?
I'm 100% in agreement with you on this one. It only took 6 race weekends for Hamilton to lose his shit with Ferrari strategy. For us, it was fantastic to see. I'm sure it really sucks for him, but we got a great show out of it. I'm sure, Netflix is licking their lips. They're going to use this in the next season of Drive to Survive for sure. And it's going to probably be just as funny then. But yeah, they're like known and joked about for their poor decision making. You would think that they've got to know that people make fun of them for this shit. Like, they got to think that they got to change something, and yet it seems like years go on and nothing changes. They keep making late or poor strategy decisions, and they don't have a fantastic car to save them this year from that. So it makes it look even worse.
Yeah, it's weird. This is really the first time I think under Fred Vasseur that I've kind of said that they looked like this is classic Ferrari being classic Ferrari again. So I hope that it's not a harbinger of things to come. When Ferrari's doing well, I think then the sport in general is doing well as also. So um, yeah, I mean there are a bunch of guys that I do want to root for. I think Lewis being in that team makes it a whole lot easier to root for, at least in my opinion. So yeah, let's hope it's a one-off, and let's hope they sort their stuff out. But yeah, at least for this weekend, yeah, the decision desk, yeah, not doing so well. All right, so we'll move into our dark horse of the day. I think we have consensus here.
Yes.
Peter Pan, the Italian version. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, great stuff. Doing the job, not looking like a rookie at all. Good job, kid. You'll learn from what you got happen when you got onto the front row a couple times, but that's okay. You'll get better for it. But Kimi Antonelli, great weekend.
Yeah, in agreement with you. Kimi Antonelli is my dark horse as well. At least from a qualifying standpoint, we saw this weekend that he really has the chops. We kind of both were surprised by his sprint pole, and I think the other great thing out of that is it wasn't just a blip on the radar in terms of that qualifying pace either. He did very well in the main race qualifying as well. Still out qualified George Russell there. So yeah, he's got some kinks to work out with the race itself, and uh, you know, you know, I guess learning where he should be not playing by the rules, I guess, is a big one he's got to learn. But yeah, he's definitely a very fast driver, and it's awesome that it only took a quarter of the way into his first season to start putting that car in the front row.
Yeah, definitely flashpoints for sure. All right, so we'll move into our driver of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got for this one?
I think this is another easy one. I think we're probably going to have consensus here too. It's got to go to Oscar Piastri. Uh, this one, it wasn't even so much that he just started at the front and drove away like he has done a couple times. He really had to fight Max for it this time. And yes, he had the better car for this track, but Max was not going to let it go easily. He, fought like a cornered animal, and Piastri really had to work for it to get by him. And when he finally did, he was able to unleash that race pace and take off into the distance. So I think this is an easy driver of the day.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Oscar Piastri was definitely the driver of the day for the on-track racecraft, and then just for the control at the front. Once he got to the front, Oscar in clean air should be a scary thing. Like that should be what people are worried about now because it's gone into the next county. It looked like within like 4 laps. It was just unbelievable. I don't ever recall, I think, seeing something like that quite on timing before. So, yeah, I mean, we're one bad corner in Melbourne away from him having maybe potentially 5 wins on the year out of the first 6 races. So we talk about whose era we thought we were going to have. This could be one of those years if it goes that way. I'm not saying it. We got a long way to go, but it could be one of those things that we're going to talk about for a very long time if it keeps going this way. But there is a long way to go, that's for sure. So we will last thing before we hop on out of here, we'll talk about our predictions. And Cody and I managed to somehow botch the podium, despite the fact that we had all of the participants in the podium, and we had them in different orders. And we both managed to not get any of them right, except for one. Uh, Cody, you take this weekend. However, you got 5 points. You got all the lap times because you were quicker than me. You got the quality lap time. You got the fastest lap driver. You got Lando for that. Good job there. You got the fastest lap time because I think you were faster than me. You got the P6 bonus pick. And we got to talk about the prop bet. The prop bet was actually quite interesting. So we had who was going to get more points this weekend between Antonelli and Hamilton. I had to literally consult the charts to figure this out. They tied. They each scored 10 points. Because of Antonelli's promotion in the sprint, due to the other guys getting penalties, he gets 2 points in the sprint and 8 points in the main race. Lewis got 6 points in the sprint and 4 points in the main race to come out to a combined total of 10. So we both get the point for the prop bet. The only other point I got was the P3 race podium. I got George Russell. We both had the McLarens flipped around. So none of that worked for us. But that leads to, after 6 races, we are deadlocked, tied 3-3. So we're equally bad or equally good at doing these predictions. I don't know how you want to see it, but there we go. All right. So we actually do get a week's break before we, I think maybe even, 1 week break before we hop into Imola. It is an old school track. It is a track with a lot of history to it. It's a track that the qualifying laps are amazing. The gravel traps are there. It's everything that you like to see, and it's in a place of Italy that is just a beautiful part of the beautiful part of the world, the Emilia Romagna region. And there could be weather. The last couple of years, there's been weather around all the time for sure. So
too much weather in some cases.
yeah, exactly. We don't want that much. We don't want biblical rain. We just want maybe enough to put on an inner tire. But anyway, that's what we got. Looking forward to it. Next weekend, I'm actually going to be taking in some IndyCar action, as I'm going to be with my brother. I'm going to be taking in the Indy road course race. So I'll probably post a couple of pictures from that over social media over the course of the weekend. So, Cody, I know you've got some music fests and stuff that you're going to be going to. So you're going to have a good time too. So we will reconvene. Maybe I'll get to do a victory lap if they pass this rule change that I'm hoping that they do. And if you've been a follower of the show, maybe you know where I'm going. So if you want to try to predict what it is, I'll gladly hear what you guys think I'm going at. But anyway, we'll come back for the Imola weekend. We'll do a preview for that, and then we'll get into our European season proper, because the next and then races thick and fast. We got Imola, we got Monaco, and we got Spain back to back to back. Boom, boom, boom. So it's going to come at us thick and fast. So, Cody, any last final thoughts?
That I'm just excited for the next triple header. I'm getting all the good Formula One in my veins, and I got some non-Formula One fun going on this next week, so I'll be ready for it to be back when it's back.
Yep, absolutely. So until then, enjoy the weekend off, and go do what you love to go do with it. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.